Why do some people come home from a perfectly nice dinner and feel like they've run a marathon? Not because the conversation was hard, not because anything went wrong. They simply talked, laughed, made eye contact, and existed near other humans for a few hours. And now their body wants nothing but silence and a dark room. If you've ever felt confused by your own exhaustion after something that should have felt easy, you're about to understand what's actually happening inside you. For years, this was written off as shyness or introversion, or just being too sensitive. But neuroscience has been quietly building a different explanation, one that has nothing to do with personality preference and everything to do with how a nervous system processes the world. Some brains, it turns out, are wired to take in more sound, more facial expression, more emotional undertone in a single sentence, and processing all of that information comes with a cost that most people never have to pay. This is where the idea of the highly sensitive person, or HSP, enters the picture. Coined by psychologist Elaine Aron in the 1990s, the term describes a trait found in roughly 1 in 5 people, a trait rooted in something called sensory processing sensitivity. It isn't a disorder. It isn't a flaw. It's closer to having a nervous system with the volume turned up. Every conversation, every glance, every shift in someone's tone of voice gets picked up, analyzed, and stored, often without the person even realizing they're doing it. Dear quote S, where it gets interesting. Brain imaging studies on highly sensitive individuals have shown increased activity in regions tied to awareness and empathy, including areas involved in processing emotional stimuli and mirroring the feelings of others. In simple terms, an HSP's brain doesn't just hear what you're saying. It's simultaneously reading your posture, your micro-expressions, the tension in your voice, quietly asking whether you're okay, whether you're annoyed, whether the mood in the room just shifted. That's an enormous amount of computation happening in the background of what looks from the outside like an ordinary chat. Now compare that to what's happening in someone whose nervous system doesn't run this extra layer of processing. They can sit through the same conversation, register the words, respond appropriately, and walk away with plenty of energy left over. Same event. 2 completely different internal experiences. This is why telling a highly sensitive person to just relax or stop overthinking it misses the point entirely. Their exhaustion was never about willpower. It was about bandwidth. This connects to something researchers call the Polyvagal theory, developed by Stephen Porges, which describes how the nervous system is constantly, unconsciously scanning the environment for safety or threat, a process known as neuroception. For a highly sensitive person, that scanning system appears to be more finely tuned. It picks up subtler cues, fires more readily, and takes longer to power back down once the interaction is over. So even after the dinner has ended and everyone has said goodnight, their body might still be running the calculations, still coming down from a state of heightened alert they were never even consciously aware of entering. And this is where the emotional cost starts to show up in daily life. Highly sensitive people often report a strange kind of guilt, the sense that they should be able to handle socializing like everyone else does, that needing to cancel plans or leave early or spend the next day recovering means something is wrong with them. They watch friends bounce from one gathering to the next, seemingly unaffected, and quietly wonder, why can't I do the same? Nobody explained to them that their nervous system was doing 3 times the work behind the scenes. Nobody told them that recovery time isn't weakness. It's the natural aftermath of a highly attuned system. Finally getting the chance to rest. Their quote S, also a hidden gift buried inside this wiring. One that rarely gets mentioned in the same breath as the exhaustion. Highly sensitive people tend to notice what others miss. They catch the friend who's gone quiet at the party. They sense the tension in a room before anyone says a word out loud. They remember the small kindness, the passing comment, the tone that shifted for half a second. This depth of perception is often what makes them extraordinary friends, intuitive partners, and thoughtful listeners. The same trait that drains them in a crowd is often the trait that makes them irreplaceable. 1-on-1. The tragedy is how often this trait gets pathologized instead of understood. Children who need quiet time after school get labeled antisocial. Adults who decline a third invitation in a week get called flaky or distant. But what looks like withdrawal is often just a nervous system doing exactly what it's designed to do, protecting itself from overload, the same way your eyes squint automatically in bright light. Nobody accuses your eyes of being dramatic for doing that. Yet somehow the same forgiveness rarely gets extended to an overstimulated mind. What changes everything is reframing the exhaustion, not as a problem to fix, but as information to respect. Recovery time after socializing isn't a character flaw needing correction. It's a signal, one worth listening to instead of overriding. The people who learn to work with this trait rather than against it tend to build lives that actually fit them. Smaller gatherings instead of big ones. Time alone built into the calendar, not as a luxury, but as maintenance. Friendships that don't require performance, just presence. So if you've spent years wondering why a night out costs you more than it seems to cost everyone else, maybe the answer was never that something is wrong with you. Maybe your nervous system has simply been paying closer attention this entire time, absorbing more of the world than most people ever notice is there, and the quiet you crave afterward isn't avoidance. It's the sound of a highly tuned mind finally getting to hear itself think.